Hey YouTube, it's Much Grace. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit the bell notification. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Rhythm of the Night as it turns 40 years old this year. The song was released February 23rd, 1985, written by Diane Warren, peaked at number 3 on the Hot 100 Billboard singles, and it peaked number 1 too on the adult contemporary charts. And the album peaked at number 3 on the R&B charts, and the album is certified gold.
All right, let's get funky and dive deep into DeBarge and the creation of their 1985 album Rhythm of the Night.
Ooh, yeah, this is a good one.
It is. And to get the inside scoop, we're taking a look back at this awesome article from 1985, Record Magazine, written by Brian Chen. And it takes us behind the scenes of, really, the making of this album.
I think this album's so interesting because it was a really pivotal moment for DeBarge.
Yeah.
You know, up to this point, they were known for their, ballads, their slow jams, and this album really shifted to more up-tempo tracks, which must have been a pretty big change for them.
A pretty big risk, I would even say. You know, they're already having success with one style.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're bringing in some, really big-name producers on this album, too. We're talking Jay Graydon, Richard Perry, even Giorgio Moroder.
Wow.
So it's what was the vision behind this? What were they thinking? What was the creative direction that led to this?
Totally. Are they chasing trends, or are they just kind of coming into their own as artists? You know, what are we trying to understand here?
Yeah, what's the force behind this? And the article really highlights El DeBarge.
Okay.
His role, I mean, he wasn't just the lead singer. He was the primary songwriter and producer for this album.
Wow.
So it really seems like it was his vision that shaped the direction.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So he's kind of like the mastermind.
Yeah, very much
behind this whole thing.
Yeah, and it seems like from the article that for El, he wasn't really it wasn't just about creating hits or being popular.
Right.
It was more about this journey of personal and creative growth and learning. So this album was kind of a reflection of that for him.
So it was he was leveling up in a way.
Exactly. Yeah. He even describes the album as a new phase for the group.
Oh, wow.
You know, they had learned so much up to this point. Right.
And they really wanted to share, what they had learned.
So it wasn't just about churning out another album. It was okay, this is us, version 2.0 or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. This is what we've learned. This is where we're at.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's almost like a thesis statement almost in album form.
Absolutely.
But then he brings in all these producers, all these big name producers.
That's a risk. You know what I mean? You already have this clear vision, and then you're inviting all these other voices.
Yeah.
All these other creative approaches.
Yeah, and these are not no-name producers. These are people who, have their own very distinct style. So, I mean, it's a risk,
Definitely. But it seems like from the article that El saw it more as an opportunity than a risk.
Okay.
And he particularly sought out Jay Graydon because Graydon had a reputation for just being a meticulous worker and really,
perfectionist.
Yeah, detail-oriented,
Okay.
dedicated to quality.
Interesting.
So, and El even adapted his own work style to match Graydon's.
What?
Yeah, Graydon was known for having a very regimented routine, working late into the night.
Oh wow.
And El kind of changed his schedule and everything to match that.
Almost like he's trying to learn by osmosis.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Let me absorb all this knowledge, all this.
Show me your ways.
Yeah, exactly. And you can see his commitment to growth there. He wasn't just phoning it in. He was really trying to refine his craft and elevate the quality of the album.
Well, and you're working with these big name producers, and I don't know, it takes a certain amount of humility to do that too.
Right.
Because it would be easy to say, look, I'm El DeBarge, I know what I'm doing, but he's actually saying, okay, I can learn something from this person. And he even acknowledges in the article that the album wouldn't be as good if he had done it alone.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting too.
There's that humility there, recognizing the strengths of others, and that that different perspectives can actually make something special.
Right. It's not a weakness to collaborate.
Exactly. It's a strength.
It's a strength.
And it makes you wonder too, was this just artistic choice, or was there some kind of commercial pressure to, evolve their sound?
That's a really good question.
Because, like, the mid-'80s, we saw such an explosion of, like, dance music.
Right.
And MTV was changing the way people were experiencing music.
Exactly. That's a great point.
Mm-hmm.
And, that really brings us to kind of like the elephant in the room, which is the move towards those up-tempo tracks.
Right.
Like I said, it's a risk.
Yeah.
And for fans who are used to, those smooth DeBarge ballads,
Yeah.
was this selling out? Were they chasing trends? What was the deal?
Well, the article makes it clear that Elle vehemently denies that.
Really?
Yeah, he insists that these up-tempo songs were always part of their repertoire, just waiting for the right moment.
So it wasn't like, okay, let's jump on the bandwagon and see if we can make a quick buck.
Right.
It was like,
He was already there.
it was organic.
Yeah.
This is who they were as well.
Exactly. So he saw it as a natural evolution for the group.
Right.
A chance to showcase their versatility and their range.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So they weren't just, trying to fit into a certain box. It was more about like, hey, this is all of who we are.
Exactly. I like that.
And it's interesting to think like how that shift might have resonated with audiences too.
Right.
Because, on one hand, you have those loyal fans who loved the ballads.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, this new sound could have opened them up to a whole new generation
Totally.
of full listeners.
It's like they were threading a needle almost.
Mm-hmm.
Like trying to stay true to their roots while also pushing boundaries and expanding their reach.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a tough thing to do, for sure. It is. And, the title track, Rhythm of the Night, became their biggest hit.
Yeah.
It reached #3 on the charts, and Elle even predicted it would be #1.
Oh, wow.
So it shows his confidence in this new direction.
Yeah, well, that confidence really paid off because Rhythm of the Night just became like a defining track of that era, and it really like catapulted DeBarge to like a whole nother level.
Yeah, definitely. Way beyond their previous hits.
But what I think is so interesting is that like in the midst of all of this, like change and all this evolution, Elle still remains very introspective, which you can kind of get a sense of in the article.
Yes, definitely. He talks about preferring to stay home, surrounded by his instruments and just waiting for the music to, quote unquote, talk to him.
Oh, wow.
So he wasn't forcing it. It was like a very...
So he's not like trying to chase the trends. Yeah. He's just letting it like come to him.
Yeah, it's a very personal, almost spiritual approach to songwriting.
I love that.
Yeah.
And it makes me think about like all of the different things that we were just talking about, like collaborating with these high-profile producers.
Yeah.
Embracing a more up-tempo sound.
Right.
Like those feel like very calculated decisions.
Uh-huh.
But at its core, the album is still driven by this very personal artistic vision.
Absolutely. It's not just a random collection of songs. It's a cohesive statement. It's a reflection of Elle's journey and the band's evolution. And it's so interesting how they managed to achieve that balance, between like artistic integrity and commercial appeal.
Right. Because, I mean, let's be real, like they were trying to sell records.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they also weren't just going to, compromise their vision for a quick buck.
Right. It's like they found that sweet spot, where they could like stay true to themselves, but also connect with a wider audience.
And I think that's really the mark of like a true artist, someone who can do both of those things.
And speaking of connecting with a wider audience, you can't talk about Rhythm of the Night without talking about like the impact of MTV.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, music videos were everything back then.
It was a visual revolution, really.
It was.
I mean, it changed the game for a lot of artists.
Totally. And I think DeBarge really understood that.
You think so?
Yeah. I mean, they weren't afraid to embrace like the visual aspect of their music.
Okay.
The article even mentions how they changed their look for this album.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They went for a more like, stylish and fashionable image.
So wait, are we talking like shoulder pads and big hair?
Well, I mean, it was the 80s.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, definitely a move away from like the more casual look they had on their previous albums.
Okay, I see. So they're evolving. They're evolving on multiple levels here.
Exactly.
It's not just the music, it's the visual, it's the whole package.
It's the whole pack.
And that's I think what made them so successful, They understood that.
Right. They understood that they had to adapt to the changing times.
Mm-hmm.
And they did it in a way that felt authentic to them.
Right. And that's the key, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're going to evolve, it has to be genuine.
It can't feel forced. It has to come from a real place.
Exactly. And it can't feel like you're just trying to, be something that you're not.
Yeah, you got to stay true to your roots.
You got to stay true to your roots, but you can branch out.
Absolutely.
You can try new things.
Explore new sounds.
Yeah. And I think DeBarge did a really good job of that on this album.
I agree.
They took some risks, they tried some new things, but it always felt like them. It never felt like they were trying to be somebody else.
Right, and that's why I think it resonated with so many people.
Yeah.
It had that authenticity that people could connect to.
And the article gives us a glimpse into kind of El's personal life too.
Yeah.
And it seems like he was really dedicated to his craft.
I was really dedicated. Like, he mentions that he preferred to stay home and just work on music.
Really?
Yeah, like, he wasn't out partying or chasing fame.
Interesting.
He was very focused on creating.
Wow.
Which is, it's pretty admirable.
It is, especially in that era, It was the 80s. It was all about,
excess.
Yeah.
And being seen.
Right, exactly. But he's just like, nope.
No.
I'm going to stay home and work on my music.
Yeah, he was all about the music, It was his passion. It was his life.
I love that. And I think you can feel that in the music.
You can definitely feel it.
Yeah.
It comes through in every note.
So we've talked about, the evolution of their sound, the visual changes, the impact of MTV.
Right.
What about the album's actual impact?
Well, Rhythm of the Night really did mark a significant leap in popularity for DeBarge. Like we said, it exceeded the success of their previous ballads, and it kind of solidified their place as one of the leading R&B groups of the time. And they weren't just, riding the coattails of trends, they were actually shaping them.
Right. And that's what I keep coming back to.
Yeah.
Is that like with this album, they really kind of like took control of their own destiny. They weren't just letting the industry dictate what they were going to do.
Exactly. They were making their own rules. They were forging their own path.
And I think that's a really powerful message.
It is. It's inspiring. It shows that you don't have to compromise your vision to achieve success.
And I think it's also a reminder that like evolution is essential.
Absolutely. You can't be afraid to grow and change as an artist.
Right.
Otherwise, you risk becoming stagnant.
Yeah. And I think DeBarge is a perfect example of how to evolve gracefully.
They did it right.
Yeah, they did it right. While we're talking about El's vision, it's hard not to notice the change in DeBarge's image on this album cover.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's a far cry from the kind of, casual, almost like homegrown look of their previous albums.
Definitely. They definitely stepped up their fashion game.
Yeah.
This album cover, it screams like, we're evolving. We're not just musically different, we're visually different too.
Right. It's like, take us seriously. We're grown now.
Yeah, and they're presenting this more mature, sophisticated image.
Makes you wonder too, like how much of that was influenced by the rise of MTV.
Oh, absolutely.
Because like music videos were suddenly everywhere.
It was a whole new ballgame.
It was. And you had to think about your image in a whole new way.
You couldn't just sound good, you had to look good too.
Exactly. And it was such a smart move for DeBarge, especially, in that very image conscious landscape of the 80s music scene.
Totally. And you know what? They really nailed it.
Yeah, they did.
They weren't just creating music anymore. They were creating a whole experience, a visual and sonic experience.
Right. It was a package.
A total package.
So we talked about this calculated risk, the collaboration, the shift in style, the visuals. But, like, at the end of the day, El's fingerprints are all over this thing.
Oh, yeah. Without a doubt.
It's still got that, like, El DeBarge magic. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And it's like he said in the article, my main influence is me. That says it all.
It does. And it's so inspiring to see an artist who is that self-aware, who have that much confidence in their own creative voice.
Absolutely. It's about trusting your instincts.
Yeah. And not being afraid to take those leaps and to own your evolution.
And he predicted Rhythm of the Night would hit #1.
Didn't quite get there.
No, it peaks at #3.
But still
a massive achievement.
huge, like way beyond anything they'd done before.
Absolutely. It really cemented their place in music history.
And it wasn't just about the music. It was about this willingness to embrace change, to push those creator boundaries, to connect with audiences in a new way.
And I think that's a message that's still relevant today.
Absolutely.
Growth comes from embracing change, trusting your instincts, pushing yourself creatively.
So as we wrap up this deep dive on DeBarge's Rhythm of the Night, it's clear that this album was more than just a commercial success. It was a statement. It was a testament to collaboration,